Welcome back to All Titans Talk. I am your host, Lane Mills, and this is our second episode. If you tuned in last week, that was pre-combine stuff. So we talked about what the Titans were looking like going into the NFL Combine, and today will be more post-combine, what we saw at that event, and then free agency opens this week. So it'll be this coming week. So we'll look a lot into that. If you don't know the drill, most of my content is posted on the site at Titans on SI. That's where you'll get breaking news from me, daily opinions, articles, uh, analysis, the best I can get it on the website. And then we also have the Twitter, All Titans Talk. Over there, you'll find some original content. We post some stuff from the combine. We'll do article stuff there. And then here is just kind of semi-regular, catching you up on the big points for what the Titans are doing right now. So the combine, I got to go up for a day, which was really nice. I was up there mostly for defensive purposes. We were looking at DBs. There were some tight ends running drills when I was up there. And again, you can find some interview stuff on the Twitter. But the big thing was the Titans were expected to swing defensively. That's why I was up there that day to see who the Titans might look at, who Robert Saleh might be looking at for his defense. We're thinking maybe Ruben Bain Jr. We discussed a lot on the last pod. We talked about David Bailey, even Sonny Styles. So there were a lot of names floating around potentially to come in and bolster this Tennessee defense. And all those guys looked good. They talked, competed some, ran some drills. Of course, the big worry with Bain was his arm length, and Bailey also held out of a drill. So it was kind of some noise around those guys. What might be the move for Tennessee? And after all that stuff, and I went up for the DB's day, of course. The news now is that the Titans might be pivoting. So that's the big combine news we're covering today. Is that the Titans are looking reportedly at running back Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame. Of course, this came as a surprise to a lot of people at first. But it kind of makes sense. They trade right before the combine. I got the news as I was pulling into the parking lot at Lucas Oil Stadium that Tennessee was trading for edge Jermaine Johnson out of New York. That was the blockbuster. We were looking at an edge in the draft. We're looking at Bailey and Bain, guys that could maybe come in and fill that role. And then Saleh goes and gets Johnson, who, coming off an injury, didn't have his best season last year, but was a Pro Bowler at one point and played under Saleh in New York. So Tennessee pulls this guy in, and suddenly the landscape changes. So initially, we're looking for sure defense at number 4 overall, or at least most likely. Saleh's even talking about defense in his interviews at the combine. And now, after Jeremiah Love does his stuff at the combine, he looks great. He's running routes like a receiver. Of course, Tennessee needs a receiver. We'll get to that talking free agency. But overall, Love is just looking excellent. And of course, in his last year at Notre Dame, 18 touchdowns, which is absolutely insane off the wall. Was a Heisman candidate. Didn't win it, but he was in the conversation. This is just a guy who could be a generational running back prospect. So from Tennessee's perspective, and from a lot of fans' perspective too, this is a common discussion in NFL circles. It's talent first versus drafting for need. And you can really go either way here. Of course, Tennessee's need can be debated now that the edge position has at least been filled to some extent. But Love surely seems like Tennessee's favorite, according to a string of recent reports that the Titans just have his name circled heading into the draft. Who knows if he'll be available at number 4? He's a likable prospect. He performed really well at the combine. He matched Jahmyr Gibbs' 40 time, which I believe was 4.36. But Gibbs is 3 inches shorter and 15 pounds lighter than Love. That's the kind of prospect we're looking at here. And to me personally, the possibility of the Titans going for Love at 4 reminds me of the Atlanta Falcons drafting Bijan Robinson a few years back. That team needed, I think, some defensive elements. They were still looking to fill out the offense a little more beyond the backfield. There were a lot of need-based projections that were not Bijan Robinson. I think that was 8th overall. And so when Atlanta drafted him, the outcry was serious. I remember scrolling through Twitter and seeing fans angry at the Falcons, which Falcons fans are easy to poke at anyway since 2016. But they were angry. They thought, this talent first selection, this is a hype pick. And now, a few years removed, a lot has happened to Atlanta since then, to be completely fair. But Bijan is the franchise guy. They don't really have a franchise quarterback in place. Drake London has been maybe the only receiver doing super notable things there. They just cut Darnell Mooney, if I remember correctly. Of course, Kyle Pitts got franchise tagged, but he has mostly underperformed or been just on par in his time in Atlanta. Bijan, drafting talent first, not necessarily to need, has been the guy there and has kind of kept them afloat in that division. So say what you will about drafting talent first, but when you've got a guy matching those metrics like Love is and just potentially being this franchise offensive guy for years to come, it's kind of hard to make an argument to pass up on him, especially with Cam Ward sort of rising as Tennessee's like franchise face. The idea of pairing Love, who is a scoring back, a pass catching back, with him in the offense for years to come, especially in the case that Brian Daboll leaves for a different job, you might just have some undeniable talent that makes this offensive system attractive. Of course, Tennessee will have to do more than just Love and Ward, but the idea of these two first and second year phenoms on offense leading the charge in this Robert Saleh rebuild is an attractive thought, to say the least. And of course, Tennessee reportedly being involved is active with Love, not only behind the scenes, but Love himself posted on Instagram that he was visiting the Titans facility. Certain fans will recall last year, after the combine, Ward was the first player to visit Tennessee's facility post combine publicly. And we all know how that went. So, with Love being the only confirmed visit now this year, this time around, it looks like the reports about Tennessee being at least very interested are accurate. I personally think it's a great move at number four. Of course, you're risking some stuff with your later picks. You're risking not meeting certain defensive needs there, which a lot of fans may have qualms with, but we'll get into that in free agency too. There are some opportunities there for Tennessee, but right now the backfield is Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard. Pretty much that's your group. Pollard is a veteran guy. He had a fine year last year, but in a rebuild where you're sort of you're pushing this younger talent, this younger regime onto Tennessee, you're changing the look, the literal look of the football program, but also just you're changing the vibes in Tennessee under Robert Saleh. You bring in a new defensive coordinator, you bring in a new offensive coordinator, you've got a new O-line coach, you've got new assistants across the board. Sticking to any veteran talent that doesn't really anchor your team, that doesn't really have an identity in Tennessee, to me, just isn't worth it. And with the talent like Love available at number four, I think you just go ahead and move on from Pollard. You can keep Spears. I don't think it'll be a split scenario, but he could certainly help Love out as he gets settled in the NFL. That to me just seems like a no-brainer pick if he's available. If you really believe Tennessee believes he's the best talent in the draft, which again, by all means, it seems that they do. I would definitely be in support of that pick. So that was our big news out of the combine. So we can kind of shift to free agency now. This sort of affects free agency to some extent. There was, I think it was Dan Graziano out of ESPN predicted the Titans to go running back in free agency with Travis Etienne, but at nearly $40 million over 3 years in that projected contract, I think that is avoidable at all costs for Tennessee, especially if you're drafting Love. But we have more rumors in the free agency sphere that kind of outline maybe more realistic and even passable moves for Tennessee. So the big one at wide receiver, like I mentioned earlier, is Wan'Dale Robinson. So New York Giants receiver coming off 1,000-yard season, 4 touchdowns, was kind of the guy in New York. Of course, you have neighbors up there as Jackson Dart was kind of getting his footing. But with a new coaching staff taking over there and Brian Daboll leaving and coming to Tennessee, the draws for Robinson are numerous. Not only could he continue to play under Daboll, which he has done for his entire career up to this point, but he would probably be the wide receiver one for Cam Ward. Say what you will about that, but Robinson has looked good and consistent in New York, in and out of sharing looks and touches with neighbors, with Jackson Dart and some other quarterbacks in his time up there. As a free agent, we're not sure what a contract would look like, and according to another recent report, it may be a bidding war scenario where Tennessee has to outbid the Giants. But according to Spotrac, Tennessee's cap space is, I think, second in the league right now, and New York's is all the way down to 18. So if it gets into a bidding war scenario, and Tennessee wants Robinson bad enough, they can win that out. That's been the big rumor. Of course, Robinson not only connected to Daboll, but he went to college at Kentucky. So it's just right down the road. That's a local thing. He's back in Kentucky a lot to support local schools and events and things like that, so he's more familiar with the area. There just might be enough pull to get this free agent to Tennessee, and the noise about mutual interest and Tennessee's pursuit of Robinson has been pretty vast. So if Titans fans should totally look out for Robinson to maybe even be an early move next week, next Wednesday when free agency opens. It could be very likely that the Titans try and swing on Robinson first, but he isn't the only receiver in that realm. Alec Pierce, after initially seeming set to return to the Colts, now it looks like he's going to be a free agent. He went on and talked to Kay Adams about potential landing spots. He smiled apparently when Cam Ward and the Titans were mentioned. Take it with a grain of salt, but he is on the market. He'll be an expensive option, but that's another 1,000-yard plus guy who's looking, as he has set himself numerous times, for bigger, more expansive opportunities at his position. So Pierce is one to look out for, and then Juwan Jennings, who had 9 touchdowns this past year, only 600 something yards, but 9 touchdowns with the 49ers. If he can stay healthy, he is a Tennessee native. He went to college there. Sort of later in his career now, he's more of a veteran than the other two. I think he's 27, 28 now. So that's a guy that might be a slight risk as far as who you're bringing in. Tennessee has a bad rap, as fans will know, with veteran wide receivers. But Jennings still sort of performing at a high enough level, I think, to verify bringing him in if Tennessee goes that route. I would still probably swing on both Robinson and Pierce first, just as far as their age and production goes. But Jennings would not be a bad pickup for Ward. More of a veteran seasoned pick that I think would be safer and probably cheaper than Calvin Ridley was. So fans wouldn't have to worry about that comparison. So that's sort of the offensive noise right now. Just recapping that, I still think Robinson is the favorite, but both Jennings and Pierce will definitely be in the conversation. And do not be surprised, Titans fans, if you hear noise in their direction. So inversely on defense, John Franklin Myers, the defensive end for the Denver Broncos, is the big piece of news there. Not only has Edge Jermaine Johnson been recruiting him openly on Twitter, posting and tagging Franklin Myers to come to Tennessee and sort of hinting at this possible reunion. Franklin Myers also played in New York under Robert Saleh, and he played next to Tanzel Smart, who was just hired at the Titans defensive assistant as a defensive line assistant, and he was commenting on Tanzel Smart's Instagram. You thinking what I'm thinking, I think is what he said. So a lot of noise around Franklin Myers, who had 7.5 sacks this last year for the Broncos. Big help on the defensive side of the ball there. If that signing comes to fruition, then all of a sudden you're looking at a Titans team who, yeah, maybe you draft Jeremiah Love at number 4 and you spend the big bucks on a receiver, Robinson, Pierce, Jennings, right out of the gate in free agency. But if you add Franklin Myers, you pair him with Jeffrey Simmons, Cedric Gray, this sort of mean defensive this grouping in Tennessee. You'll also maybe looking at a linebacker addition. Look out for Tremaine Edmonds with the Bears, someone Saleh has spoken positively about in the past, who was a trade candidate for Tennessee before being cut outright by the Bears. Look for that potential addition as well. But this might be the path for Tennessee to fill that defense out if they don't do it at the top of the draft. You might be able to have your cake and eat it too. Now, a lot of pieces have to fall in place, but this offseason, Tennessee has the money to do both. You can draft Love and swing big for your offense at number 4, and then you can go get Franklin Myers. You can get Edmonds and fill out this defense more than you already have with Jermaine Johnson. Maybe look for a pick in the secondary late in the draft. But these free agency moves, these potentials look huge for Tennessee. I mean, this looks to be the path that maybe you fill the defense out if you go high on offense in the draft. But a lot of avenues for Tennessee could go anywhere. Even at receiver, there are more options. Tennessee needs a center as well, having cut Lloyd Cushenberry. That's a big one. You're looking at Tyler Linderbaum as kind of the big center option in free agency, but he's going to come with a high price tag. Maybe Cade Mays out of Carolina is a more cost-effective option. Still not cheap, but we'll see what happens. All that to say, Tennessee has a lot of moves they have to make, and a lot of avenues to make them. It's going to be a balancing act for Saleh and his staff in this first offseason. But that's kind of our comprehensive update right now, where the combine is sort of connecting to free agency, and who Tennessee signs may hint to who they're going to draft, and vice versa. So with the draft coming up next month and free agency again opening next week, we don't really have a lot of time to have these questions answered. I'm just throwing all this information at you. I would look for Love to remain the favorite for Tennessee for now, unless one of the 3 teams above the Titans decide to take a swing on him or start leaning his direction. And then as far as free agency goes, if I had to stake my claim anywhere, I would probably say the Titans sign Robinson, sign Franklin Myers for sure, and I would look for those to be pretty quick moves. From there, it's up in the air. Tennessee could spin any direction. Anybody who follows football, especially the NFL, knows that these things can change not only by the day, but by the hour, by the minute. So right now, that's kind of what I think all the smoke is leading to for the Titans as far as their moves go. But really, anything can happen, and we'll be covering it day by day. So again, this has been the second episode. I know I threw a lot at you. If you want the daily news in a more concise written form, you can check us out on Titans on SI. That's where we'll break the news. We'll be posting about that on the Twitter, All Titans Talk, and I'll hit you guys back here as soon as I can with another update. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've been Lane Mills, and this has been All Titans Talk.